A good night of Shabbos, friends. Share the following Dvar Torah dedicated to memory of my father, Chaim, of Alter Yisochor of Haleivi. In today's parsha, Shelach, we learn the sixth aliyah. Hashem speaks to Moshe and says, "David obnei Yisrael v'amalta aleim." Speak to the people of Israel and tell them, when I'm going to bring you to the land to which I bring you, and you're going to eat from the bread of the lamb. You will set aside a portion for God. From the first of your eating shall you set aside a loaf as a portion. You need dough, take a loaf, a challah, and set it as a portion. The word challah actually doesn't mean loaf, but it's the name of the portion that's designated by God to be holy and to be given to the Kohen. And that's where we get the custom to call the loaves that are baked for Shabbos challah. And of course, whenever a Jewish person bakes a dough, you're supposed to take off a portion. There's a mitzvah to take off a portion per the laws of challah. That's beyond our conversation right now. There's another verse in the book of Yecheskel that says, the first of your kneadings shall you give to the Kohen, it will be blessing to your home. What's the blessing that challah brings? And why were they commanded this when they enter the land? There is a work called the Megala Amukas by the B'Nosanata Shapiro of Krakow, very important book of Musar and Kabbalah, that notes that the word arisa, which here we're translating as dough or as kneading, or the kneading bowl, also means, arisa means a cradle or a crib that an infant sleeps in. And according to the Megala Amukas, Reishis Arisa Sechem is also a reference, not just to physical bread, but when a yid gets up in the morning, we get out of our cradle. Well, when we're newborn, we go to sleep at night, God takes our soul, returns it to us in the morning, we're reborn. And the first thing we need to do is raise a portion to God. We need to acknowledge that everything has from God, and that's why we start a day with Moda Ani Lefanecha. We acknowledge and we thank God for everything. The Rebbe once quoted this commentary of the Megala Amukas in one of his discourses. He took it a step further. He explains that the word arisa, which we're translating as a person getting up in the morning and getting out of bed, and it's a reference to dough. Dough in the Talmud, bread in the Talmud, is a reference to Torah. Reishis arisa sechem, when you want to start learning Torah, the first thing is you need to give a portion to God. What does it mean you need to give a portion to God? You start the day, you acknowledge God. You start Torah, you acknowledge God. But it's more than just acknowledging God. More than just thanking God. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, without flour, without panosa, literally, there's no Torah. You can't learn without being able to learn, without having a way to support yourself. Then the Mishnah goes a step further and says, Kol Torah she'enim malacha, so if we get out of Torah, Torah without work is not going to last, and it's going to lead to sin. According to the Baal Shem Tov, according to the Torah that we have that was transmitted by the Rabbi of Batichev, this Mishnah that says Kol Torah she'enim malacha, Torah without work, is a reference not to manual labor, to the work for panosa, or work for a living, but rather to the work of Avas Yisrael, to the efforts that we have to take in loving each other. And according to the Torah of Baal Shem Tov, when we say without work, without panosa, there's no Torah, that's also a reference to avoda. What does avoda mean? Service, work. Service of Hashem, tefillah. Without tefillah, without service of Hashem in that manner, and without loving our fellow, the Torah is not going to last. When we get out of bed in the morning, and we start getting involved in dough, living a Torah lifestyle, learning a Torah lifestyle, that's the bread of a yid. We need to remember that God is present, and the only way to keep God's presence there is to start with avoda, prayer. And why is Avas Yisrael called service? Why is that part of divine service? Why is it similar to prayer? According to the Baal Shem Tov, love of God and love of Israel are two sides of the same coin. As the verse says, Ahafti eschem amar Hashem. Right? The Baal Shem Tov was once asked, what's greater, love of God, love of Israel? And Baal Shem Tov responded, Ahafti eschem amar Hashem. God says, I love you. So if I love my fellow Jew, I love the one who my beloved loves, I love God as well. Prayer is an expression of love for God. Avos Yisrael is an expression of love for our fellow. We want to express our love for God that don't work without love of the fellow. And conversely, love of the fellow doesn't work without the love of God. And so, Moshe Rabbeinu tells Meir Yisrael, in the name of Hashem, when you enter the land, the land, Lord, Eretz also means Ratzon, will. You want to get to God's will and start your day properly. When you get up in the morning, the beginning of your dough, the beginning of you getting out of bed, The beginning of your awakening to a life of Torah must be to lift up a portion to God, to give to God the avoda, the malacha, the heart, the kemach, the panasa. What's the panasa? Avos Hashem and Avos Yisrael. And of course, when we do that, the prophecy of Yecheskel will be fulfilled. Laniach bracha b'secha. That's how you bring the bracha. We manifest God's blessings and the bounty on our own. May it be the will of God that through studying this Torah, we realize this. We realize these blessings in a real way, physically, materially, here in this world. With coming with Mashiach, immediately have a wonderful Shabbos. Here's a niggun from my brother Sholom.